Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Bardon is the book that you guys requested that I review from the 5 possible books that I put up in that poll from last month's book roundup. And I can absolutely see why it's a favorite with so many people. I can absolutely see why people who really get into it would really love this system. But I'm going to be quite honest from the very beginning here. I am absolutely not the target audience for this book. It was very interesting for me to read, to finally understand why so many people speak so highly of this book, and with good reason. But there are 2 main reasons why this isn't a book for me. And when you hear those 2 reasons, you might resonate with them, or you might think to yourself, actually, no, that's absolutely fine, and I may in fact be the target audience for this book. The first reason why it's not a book for me is that I already have been, let's say, steeped in a particular system for a while. I've talked about the correspondences that I've come up with for my own system, essentially. Basically reading books like this one and going, I don't like those correspondences. They don't feel right to me instinctively. And so what if I change this around? And so I've built up my own system that does in fact agree with my assumptions and the way that I view the world. This does present a completely self-contained system that assumes that you are not following the teachings of any other system, right? And that is a blessing because it's entirely self-contained. If you are going to a desert island and you're only allowed to bring 1 book on magic with you, this could absolutely be the one, right? It is self-contained, self-referencing, and assumes that you're fresh to magic, essentially. Let me give you an example of this. I'm desperately trying to turn the page here, aren't I? Here we go. Let me just turn over to this tarot card of the Magician, which is the only color illustration, in fact, the only illustration in the entire book, as far as I can remember, yes. Looking at these different colors, if you've been used to, let's say, the Golden Dawn system for a little while, you would assume that you have blue for water, red for fire. Since yellow is air, then this must be earth, right? Something along those lines. But actually, no. In Franz Bardon's system, red is fire, but blue is air. This kind of teal color is actually the water, and then yellow is earth. So, just going into this, you can tell that it's not an extension to the Golden Dawn. It is quite similar to the Golden Dawn in many ways, right? I will say that, although an advantage of this system over the Golden Dawn system is that the Golden Dawn system assumes that you will become a part of the Golden Dawn order, which, as you know, disbanded, and what we have today are recreations of the Golden Dawn based on the documents that remain, which we don't even know if they're complete or accurate or unchanged or not. This assumes that you'll be reading the book and following the instructions in the book, right? So that's a big advantage over the Golden Dawn system. Today, should I say, right? I mean, if we were living in 1900, then that may be a different matter, particularly since this was written in the 1950s, I believe, right? First written in 1956, right? First English translation in 1962. I'll tell you about the second reason why this isn't a good book for me specifically in a moment. First of all, I think this is a good opportunity to tell you a little bit about the construction of the book. So first of all, we have this section 1, this initiation part 1, the theory. It's not very long, it's just a few pages, and it reads very much like a modern Agrippa. Right, yeah, I think that's pretty much what you get here, right? It's very much informed by Eastern philosophy, and by Eastern I mean actually Indian tantric philosophy, So you could say that, the Golden Dawn was also inspired by Eastern Tantric philosophy. I think this is a little bit more openly so, right? The ideas of what different varieties of spirits exist. And it's all from the perspective of a fourfold division of the world, right? Of the universe into the four elements, with the fifth element being the quintessence, being ether. From which all the four elements arise, and then everything else arises from combinations of those four elements. So I guess an alchemical approach there, an occult anatomy of the body. Franz divides all things into electric, emitting, and magnetic, or receiving, I suppose, elements, which I think is possibly a better lexicon, a more modern lexicon to use than masculine and feminine principles, which immediately brings up concepts of gender and literally men and women, and things like this, which is not what the occultists were referring to with those terms. I think that using electric versus magnetic is, it's nice. I like it. I like that concept. So once he's given you some basic understanding of occult philosophy over here, he then goes into the rest of the book, which is the actual practice. And this happens in 10 steps, right? The rest of the book describes the 10 steps to adepthood. Now, this really brings me to part 2 of why this isn't the right book for me, is that step 1 is essentially be perfect. And if you're not perfect, practice being perfect until you are perfect, right? Of course, the beginning of step 2 is if you haven't completed step 1, then go back to step 1. There's absolutely no point, and he repeats this at the beginning of pretty much every step. There's absolutely no point in going forwards if you haven't absolutely and utterly mastered the previous step. And step 1 really is be perfect. If you're a smoker, stop smoking. If you've got any addictions whatsoever, kick them. You should be, and by the way, if you have aphantasia, if you struggle with or have an inability to visualize things, then you're not yet perfect. You need to practice until you can, which is pretty much, in my opinion, the equivalent of saying, hey, if you're missing both your legs, just keep practicing until you can run 100 meters unaided. A person who has maybe amputated legs or has never had legs would eventually be able to run 100 meters given the right prosthetics and the right guidance, but just being told, hey, just do it until you can do it. Keep trying. That's not really good enough, right? And so I speak regularly to people reaching out to me. I do one-to-one consultations with people who want to know what the next step to take might be, right, for their magical progression or spiritual progression. And, so many reach out saying, hey, I can't start because I'm not perfect yet. And it's because of this kind of recommendation that, if you can't meditate for half an hour, then please don't start, attempting to do anything that might be interesting for you, right? Don't get me wrong, a lot of the exercises here are great exercises, really interesting thoughts about ways of thinking about the universe, ways of thinking about the self, ways of thinking about the human mind. And there are some very, very cool sections. There's a whole section on magic mirrors. My goodness, it's extraordinary. Really, really good stuff. It's actually quite long with lots of different chapters, this section on the magic mirror. And it's all really, really good stuff, but you're not really supposed to get to it before you're at least perfect and then have mastered pretty much everything else that comes before it. Again, this is going to be great for the kind of person who really thrives in a classroom, somebody who really enjoys being told what to do next and who wants no uncertainty in their own practice. They want to know exactly what the next step should be and are comfortable doing the next step that is recommended, right? And I can vouch for the fact that these steps are in the right order. And if you were to follow these steps one by one, you would become a very competent magician. There's no question about it whatsoever. I have attention deficit disorder, and I can only focus on whatever my rather chaotic mind has decided to focus on, and that thing I can focus on and do focus on 100%. And in fact, to try to get me to stop focusing on that is an impossible task. I focus all of my mind with all of my passion and heart with whatever has caught my passion and heart. I can't be told, hey, this next thing is the next thing that your passion and heart should be directed towards, because that's not the way it works. I'm not perfect, right? I'm not perfect. I've spent many years, let alone a few months, the way he recommends, many years trying to force myself against my own nature to be perfect in the way that he describes here. And, I've had some minimal success, but nowhere near the kind of success that would let me think, okay, I'm now ready to move on to step 2. And I'm really talking about years of intense trying. My entire school years were trying to do that until I utterly gave up and finally started learning when I left university and was able to focus on the things that did in fact catch my heart and passion, right? So there we are. These are the 2 main reasons why this book isn't for me. However, I am not everyone. And so if you're starting out, right? If you're starting out in your magical career and you're looking for a system that you can rely on, that you can trust to be absolutely right, and that you want to completely devote yourself to, this can be the thing. If you are a beginner magician who has tried out a few things and who enjoys trying out a few things, I'd say no, this isn't the one for you. The other kind of person that this could be for is the advanced magician who is looking for further deep studies in elementals and, in fact, the elements altogether. And is looking for additional ideas and thoughts to challenge their own and to complement their own, then you won't be put off by the quirks and idiosyncrasies of this book. You won't be put off by those, and you will gather some interesting thoughts and some useful exercises, some useful ways of thinking about things that may fit into or around the way you're already thinking and working. And some of it will just not necessarily make any sense because of the way that it's all self-referencing and a complete system that assumes no contact with outside systems. There we go. I think that's everything that I've got to say about Franz Bardon's Initiation into Hermetics. Clearly a very influential work. It gets referenced everywhere. It's out of print at the moment. I'm sure it won't be out of print for very long. Looking at the list of reprints from 2001, 2005, 7, 9, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. To understand, I believe that there is a new translation in the works. Yeah, so definitely wait for that. I don't think that it's worth spending the huge amounts of money for the paperback edition, given how many other wonderful works there are out there, right? You can wait. You can wait. If you want an entire system that works really well, that takes you from beginning to end, I recommend Josephine McCarthy's Quareia books. If you can't afford the books themselves, the courses are actually for free online on Quorea.com, but the books are very inexpensive given what you are getting, and certainly much cheaper than paying for an out-of-print copy of this Initiation into Hermetics. You're getting at least the same quality. In fact, you're getting a lot more because it's a more modern system. There we go. That said, those of you who have been clamoring for me to read this, I am grateful because I finally have read this now, and I've got a good idea of what it is and who it's for and who I can recommend it to and who I should rather not recommend it to. And so that's just an extra arrow in my quiver, as it were. So thank you very, very much for that. Okay, that's everything. See you soon with another review. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.